I want y'all to hear this. Some of these Roy Moore voters, these Trump supporters, I want y'all to hear something. This is the illogical rationalizations of white supremacists. I want y'all to hear this. Now, Vice did something, Vice on HBO, they did something where they talked to a bunch of Trump supporters, these suspected white supremacists, talking about their conservative. I don't buy into that conservative bullshit. That's the problem. You got a lot of white supremacists who try to hide behind conservatism. Shit, I'm conservative if we're going to go there, but I don't believe in it. I don't have the illogical bullshit mentality that these people have. Watch how people try to label themselves when they're practicing white supremacy. They like to try to label it something else, and it's just the same old white supremacy. But they're so on code with Roy Moore. They're so on code with Roy Moore. And I want y'all to listen to this. I'm not going to play the video. I just want y'all to hear the audio. But these are them trying to rationalize molestation. Listen to this. Hold on.
Have to come forward before you say, wait a minute, where there's smoke, there's fire.
It doesn't matter about it's legitimacy, not just how many.
Exactly.
How many are actually not being paid or being coerced to do this?
How many of them do you think are being paid?
Okay, so they're talking about the women accusing Roy Moore of raping and molesting them. So you got a group of suspected white supremacist voters, Trump supporters. One lady has on a Trump shirt. And just their fucking logic. You can't rationalize with a white supremacist.
All of them.
All of them?
All of them.
By show of hands, how many of you think all the women are being paid? Seriously.
To me, there are only two women that maybe have a smoking gun, but their reputations were questionable at the time.
Now, you hear what she's saying? Now, they're questioning the reputation of the women accusing Roy Moore. Now, when we question the reputation of those women who were accusing Cosby, which many of those women were drug addicts, liars, thieves, we kept being told, well, hey, all those women came forward, so somebody got to be telling the truth. Some truth must be some truth to it. So now, when it's Roy Moore, a white dude, now they're changing their tune now. Hold on.
Is this how you want to be treated as a woman if something were to happen to you? Do you want to be dismissed that way?
Never have proof. It doesn't sound like it went beyond the still clothes zone. It doesn't sound like it went beyond anything. And then as soon as the girl said she wasn't comfortable, he took her home.
I guess my question is...
Did you hear what this woman said? This is a white woman saying, well, it didn't go beyond her with her clothes on. So this 14-year-old child getting fondled and molested by this grown-ass white supremacist man, well, it was just through the clothes. It wasn't penetration. It was just through the clothes. This is how important maintaining white supremacy is. The white supremacists, they will go against their own self-interest and sacrifice their own well-being just so they can maintain white supremacy. Listen to this.
You blame her. She's 14.
I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming both of them. So I didn't say that I thought he was with her.
She's blaming a 14-year-old for being molested. Okay? She's blaming a 14-year-old child for being molested. You see what I'm saying? These are grown-ass white supremacists right here. Blaming a 14-year-old for being molested.
Son, it's possible he did it, but it's possible that he could be forgiven for... I don't think he raped her.
Well, it's possible he did it because this white woman knows that there's something to it, but he can be forgiven, right? Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Real talk. Beauty is her name. A lot of these white supremacist women like this, they sit around and let their children get molested by the white supremacist male. They sit up and turn a blind eye. They sit up and let their children get molested big time. They let this happen a lot. These white supremacist females, they sit up. This is why a lot of young white women, they grow up very resentful to white men and white women. Older white women, they like white supremacy now. They like the benefits they get of being in a system of white supremacy, but they're very resentful to those authoritarian figures who let them get fondled and molested and abused.
It was a different world. 40 years ago in Alabama, people could get married at 13 and 14 years old.
No, they couldn't. No, they couldn't. That's a damn lie. That's a goddamn lie, this dude. 40 years ago was like 1977. No, you couldn't get married at no 13 and 14 in Alabama. You did? Molestation was still molestation. Yeah, they like to say, well, 40 years ago. No, that's not true. 40 years ago was like, what, 1977? You couldn't marry a 13-year-old in Alabama in 1977. But listen to their rationalization.
Alabama, people could get married at 13 and 14 years old. My grandmother at 13 was married. At 15, had 2 children and a husband and a job. If Roy Moore was guilty, if he was at the mall hitting on this 14-year-old, 40 years ago in Alabama, there's a lot of mamas and daddies that'd be thrilled that their 14-year-old was getting hit on by a district attorney.
Wow. This is not a parody. This isn't a parody. These are real white supremacists, dude. Letting their kids get he said parents would be thrilled to know that their kids are being molested by a district attorney. Black people, you just don't know how sick these people are. Let me tell you something. I grew up in Alabama as a small child. I grew up in Alabama. I lived in Alabama in the 80s. As a small child, I lived in Alabama. I grew up in Alabama, Birmingham, and I lived in Leeds for a little while. I grew up around people just like this. I grew up around people just like these, right here. These were my teachers, my schoolmates. I grew up around people just like that. I knew then something was wrong with these fucking people. I knew then, as a child, around people like that, something is wrong with these people. That's why I'm conscious as fuck today. I started then. Like, hold on. Something ain't right with these fucking folks right here. This logic that they have, this is not new. These white supremacists down there, they think like that. This is normal for them. I grew up around these fuckers down there, dude. I knew something was wrong with those folks as a child. Unfortunately, these are your teachers. These are your doctors. These are people in authoritative positions over us. And I knew, wait, hold on. These people are degenerate. I don't know what degenerate, before I knew what the word degenerate was, I know they're that. So let me question everything they say to me and let me be on alert every time they come around me. When they come around me with the mentality they have, let me make sure I'm good. Let me not go anywhere with them by myself. Let me not trust them. So I knew better. You dig? Those are your cops and your judges. And when they start talking about race, hold on, let me play that part. When they start talking about race, hold on. Just the illogical bullshit, hold on.
So I got a question for you. We recruited, there were about 60 people who wanted to be in this group, and you guys ended up in it. Not a single African American is in this group. Why?
Welcome to Alabama. Democrats.
That's the best you can come up with.
I was here during the Civil Rights era. We didn't have racial problems after the 80s.
What? What? She said you didn't have racial problems after the 80s. In Alabama? Are you insane? You did. You had racial issues. They never went away. They were still funneling black folks in jail, gentrifying neighborhoods, miseducating black children. They tried to miseducate me. They were throwing black children in special education in the 80s in Alabama left and right. They tried to throw me in there. I'm telling you for a fact this woman is full of shit. The only reason I didn't go to special education is because my mother wouldn't sign off on it. Your parents had to sign off on it. My mother said, oh, you ain't about to put him in no special ed, and thank goodness she didn't. They were putting all the black kids in special education down there. For any reason, if you just were overactive, if you were hyperactive, they'll put you in special ed down there. That shit is still segregated. There are no racial issues. This shit is segregated, and it's still segregated down there. The fuck is you talking about? That place is more segregated than ever in Alabama. And all over, by the way. I'm not just, because Alabama, people give Alabama, make it seem like all the racism is there, but hell, all over. But really there. Hold on.
We went through it. When Obama was elected and he started his divisional rhetoric, race relations in Alabama went the rest of the way of the country.
And they're nodding their head. So they're blaming Obama for systematic white supremacy. It was Obama's fault. Just some old illogical, I'm white and I say so, stupid ass shit that don't make no lick of sense nowhere. These are white people in suits. These are your police officers, your lawyers, your teachers, just making up bullshit. Well, racism, what racism? There wasn't no racism until Obama made racism back in the forefront. And what the hell did Obama say?
Relations in the state of Alabama is really not that bad.
But what does it say?
Say race relations in Alabama is not that bad. Well, to them, as long as the black people are far underneath them, what's so bad about it? Listen, I lived in Birmingham, Alabama. They have a plantation in the middle of a black neighborhood. They got the Arlington plantation, a slave plantation, on Cotton Avenue, right in the middle of the hood out there. Black folks, poor, gentrified, ain't got two nickels to rub together. But race relations are fine. Our niggas are poor and destitute, and we got a couple of them, doing all right, but race relations are fine. They live over there in their little nigger neighborhood that we police 24 hours a day, and race relations are good. Race relations are fine, meaning our Negroes don't complain about the mistreatment that we give them. That's what they're saying. Our Negroes don't complain about the mistreatment that we have systematically against them. That's their definition of race relations are fine. You understand? Hold on.
It always comes down to race. Why can't we just be Americans, Alabamians?
Because 97% of the African American community is going to vote for Doug Jones. Does that not concern you?
It does.
Yes, it does.
Yes, that concerns me greatly. It tells me that Roy Moore didn't do a very good job of getting out and campaigning.
So why aren't they voting Republican?
Because they listen to people, that are that have influence over them.
If they've been so
Okay, there's only so much of that bullshit I can take. But just the illogical, their thing, as long as black people are poor, gentrified, funneled into less than stellar housing, funneled into underfunded schools, well, race relations are good. when I went down to Birmingham a couple of years ago. I went to my old neighborhood in West End. West End is just abandoned houses. It's just shitted on. This is great. Race relations are good. Black folks ain't got shit. What's the problem? We don't have a race. Our Negroes are fine. And that's the thing. The white supremacists down there are very polite to you. Because the Negroes, in their mind, the Negroes know their place. The Negroes are not going to really kick up too much dust. You know, you're quiet about your oppression. So race relations are fine. And I'm saying I live there. I'm telling you what, that's why I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there. That's why I left as soon as I can scrape enough money to get a ticket and came here in the 80s as a teen by myself. I risked my life to get the fuck out of there. I'm like, hell no. There's no damn way I'm going to be here subservient to these fucking idiots. No. LA was a whole different thing. You have another form of white supremacy here, but at least we had brothers at least trying to fight against it a little bit. Out there, it's like, let's not disrupt white daddy. Man, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I'm like, I'm cool, because that's the mentality down there. You got to just suffer in silence. You take your oppression in silence. You take your deprivation of resources and wealth. Take it with silence and don't kick up no dust. That's just the way it's supposed to be. Now take these little crumbs that we throw you. We'll throw you a couple of crumbs every blue moon and just be happy that we're giving you crumbs. That's the mentality. So, Doug Jones, he's running against Roy Moore, and Doug Jones, he prosecuted a couple of Klan members who blew up those babies at that church down there. He prosecuted them. So, this vote, has a lot of racial overtones. There's a lot of racial overtones there. You dig? Man. But just to hear them talking to justify child molestation, that's some real sick shit, man. That's why you can't really rationalize with the white supremacists. The only thing you can do is try to discredit them. You can use their own words against them.